The Trumpet Daily is presented by Stephen Flurry. The program analyzes world news and history from a distinct perspective and compares current events to prophecies found in the Bible. The program also offers free educational publications, including the Trumpet News Magazine and books and booklets. The Trumpet Daily is produced at the Philadelphia Church of God's home campus in Edmond, Oklahoma, and its sister campus in Edstone, England. More information is available at thetrumpet.com.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
So we did the Presidential Walk of Fame from the great George Washington all the way to, well, I think we have to rate him above me. So less than great, less than George. Somebody went up there, they say, you're the third best president in the United States. This was on television, third best. And they said, who are the first two? George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. And I got extremely angry at this man. You know, you can't, it's going to be tough to beat, Mr. Senator. It's going to be, John, it's going to be very tough to beat Washington and Lincoln, but we're going to give it a try, right? Hey, they didn't put out 8 wars, 9 coming, all right? We put out 8 wars, and the 9th is coming, believe it or not.
What we've seen the past week gives me great optimism the ceasefire is going to hold.
I want to echo what the Vice President said about how a lot of people are getting a little hysterical about different incursions one way or the other, but what we are seeing is that things are going in accordance. Both sides are transitioning from 2 years of very intense warfare to now a peacetime posture.
Well, Vice President Vance over with Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and talking to Israel about whether they have to go back in to Gaza. Mark Levin is worried about it. He says we have a delegation in Israel now that's pressuring Israel. I base this on the anonymous leaks that I'm reading in the media, which have been planted there. We talk about obliterating Hamas, yet we are pressuring Israel. Pressuring Israel will not stop Hamas. Pressuring Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt as well as Hamas is what should be done.
I would also say this. We're learning so much here. This CMCC that we're setting up now, this is going to be used in other conflicts as we figure out all the intricacies of how to modulate a peace deal, go from war to peace. We're really proud of what's happened here. It's an amazing effort. It's a great coordination between our partners. We have a great team. Signing this deal up was a challenge in and of itself, but the implementation, that's where it really is going to be the most important. And I think we are exceeding where we thought we would be at this time.
We're not going to force anything on our Israeli friends when it comes to foreign troops on their soil, but we do think that there's a constructive role for the Turks to play, and frankly, they've already played a very constructive role. We're very grateful for that. And you asked, they've supported Hamas in the past. No one who is a party to this conflict can look in the past and not point at something that they don't like or that they disagree with. Everybody who's been involved in this conflict can point at one other person. One of these flags can point at another flag and say, we hate that person for various reasons. The way that we're going to get to peace is to focus on the future, which is what the President of the United States has asked us to do. And we think everybody here is very willing to do that and is very eager to engage in that effort.
So much peace. I mean, it's just breaking out everywhere, as you heard there. The delegation's over in Israel now because the ceasefire agreement, I mean, they're trying to figure out if Israel needs to go back in and finish off Hamas or if we can hold on to peace. Peace in the Middle East. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily with a black background. I guess the screen behind me blew out this morning, or maybe they were watching the Thunder game last night and having a big party, and everything just blew up on us. So today we're going with the 60 Minutes interview look. Hopefully you'll appreciate it. Hopefully it won't be this way every single day, but at least you can see me and you can get the message. That's the main thing, of course. Get the message. I know we've talked a lot about peace because world leaders are talking about peace. It's breaking out everywhere. And again, the Trump administration has had some success through negotiation. But boy, 8 wars. You look at this war-torn globe, And to talk about peace breaking out everywhere, even as, I mean, people are open, here in the United States, they're openly talking about assassination. They're waving signs and placards saying we need to assassinate Trump. There's a guy arrested yesterday who said we've got to take out Hakeem Jeffries. How do you solve this kind of conflict? I mean, there is the Vice President of the United States talking about the constructive role that Turkey has to play in making peace. Turkey, Erdogan hates Israel. Erdogan was invited to the discussion. You'll see this later in a clip we have from Mark Levin. He's invited into the peace talks in Egypt, and he stipulates up front, is Netanyahu going to be there? Because if he's going to be there, I'm not coming. So how do you solve this? I mean, the spirit of hatred, it's everywhere. You've got, as I was texting yesterday, on the one hand, you've got Bibi Netanyahu, who is trying to kill Hamas, their leadership, their representatives, even if they're in Qatar. That's where they have safe haven. So that's his objective, or at least it was. He's been made to apologize since he bombed Qatar, or those Hamas people in Qatar. And yet at the same time, as you heard yesterday on this show, you've got Witkoff going in to comfort and to console and to encourage the 4 Hamas representatives. I'm just like you. I mean, I've lost a son. And you lost a son because of that bombing. So, and then for his part, Kushner, he was very heartened by that exchange. He was very encouraged. He saw 2 people. He didn't see a terrorist organization. Turkey has a very constructive role to play in this process. Really? Is that true? Have we ever put this kind of trust in people or organizations or leaders that just publicly proclaim their hatred for Israel, in some cases for the United States? Just outright contempt. The Bible talks about Ephraim being a silly dove. Well, that's basically the way America's behaving. Like a silly dove. We had the dove of peace on one of the recent Trumpet magazine. In fact, we've got an article in the latest Trumpet, the October issue, on how Turkey will betray America. The Bible has a lot to say about betrayal. And here, the only time that word's even been used in these discussions is Israel betraying America, of all things. I don't need to repeat everything we've covered over the last week or two, but this is madness. Trying to sit down. I'm not coming if Bibi's going to be there. Oh, and you have a constructive role in this peace discussion. Okay. There's the article that was just flashed up there, coming back to this delegation, headed up by Vice President J.D. Vance. Here's J.D. Mr. Vance from the press conference yesterday, clip 4.
President Trump's historic peace plan in the Middle East, and things are going, frankly, better than I expected that they were. This is a very, very tough situation. You have 2 peoples, 2 enemies who have fought a very tough conflict against each other. You have a terrorist organization on one hand that murdered a lot of innocent people. You've got an Israeli army that was defending itself on the other, that has learned a lot over the past couple of years. And then, of course, you have an innocent civilian population in Gaza that's caught in the middle. But we're here at the Civilian Military Cooperation Center, which we are announcing the opening of. You have Israelis and Americans working hand in hand to try to begin the plan to rebuild Gaza, to implement a long-term peace, and to actually ensure that you have security forces on the ground in Gaza, not composed of Americans, who can keep the peace over the long term.
It's going better than he expected. You listen to him, you listen to President Trump. Peace is breaking out everywhere. And now we've got the new, what is it, the CMCC? I'm not even sure what that stands for, but another alphabet agency or institution. And it's going to bring peace in the Middle East. Herbert Armstrong, we've mentioned this example before. He was there in 1945 when they were establishing the United Nations. I mean, it sounded so good. And all the speeches that world leaders gave, they were sobering because they said, this is our last chance. They were sobering, and yet they were so optimistic. And Mr. Armstrong was there as a roving reporter, reporting for the Plain Truth magazine, God's perspective on the news. He said, actually, I see the clouds of World War III gathering at this conference, because he saw the spirit of hatred. He saw the backbiting. He saw the division, the strife. We're talking about root causes of armed conflict. You've got the leader of Turkey saying, I'm not going to be at that meeting if Bibi Netanyahu's going to be there. And then we come out of the meeting and, well, it's going better than we expected. I pointed out yesterday, every major point on the ceasefire agreement, Hamas has violated in less than 2 weeks. And yet, better than expected. I guess it's going better than we expected it would go. He said the United Nations conference is producing nothing but strife and bickering and is destined from its inception to end in total failure. So the U.S. delegation heads over to Israel, talking about the new CMCC and how everything with the ceasefire agreement is just going splendidly well, I guess. And meanwhile, this is President Trump tweeting out yesterday. He says numerous of our now great allies in the Middle East and areas surrounding the Middle East have explicitly and strongly, with great enthusiasm, informed me that they would welcome the opportunity at my request to go into Gaza with a heavy force and to straighten out Hamas if Hamas continues to act badly in violation of their agreement with us. So here's a little bit of a reality check, a truth bomb from the president himself. And how revealing is this? That he says all of his great allies in the Middle East, they're basically telling Trump, go in and finish off Hamas. You've got to eliminate Hamas if we're going to have any semblance of peace in the region. Go ahead. They're giving him the thumbs up. And what's his response? The love and spirit for the Middle East has not been seen like this in 1,000 years. What? 1,000 years of love and a peaceful spirit? It's a beautiful thing to behold. I told these countries, says President Trump, and Israel, not yet. There's still hope that Hamas will do what is right. There's still hope. We're just going to give Hamas more time to comply, to obey the rules, to do what they agreed to do. They signed the document. And as I went through yesterday with you, they violated every single step. This is who we're trying to make peace with. Just give them more time. Apply pressure on Israel, of course, always. But with respect to Hamas, you got to give them time to change, to not hate Israel. They were established for the sole purpose of destroying Israel and killing Jews. They said so proudly in 1987. And they had a pretty good success with that on the October 7 operation, the invasion of Israel. And no one's apologized. No one says, you know what? This irrational, unhinged, deranged hatred of Jews, we're sorry about that. We want to try to make this work. We want to change our ways. This is from the press conference yesterday, clip 8.
And look, our warning to Hamas is very straightforward. The terms of the 20-point plan that the president put out there is very clear. It's supported not just by Israel, but by all of our Gulf Arab friends. It's that Hamas has to disarm. It's that Hamas has to actually behave itself, and that Hamas, while all the fighters can be given some sort of clemency, they're not going to be able to kill each other, and they're not going to be able to kill their fellow Palestinians.
He's right about one thing. The terms of the ceasefire plan are very clear. They're very clear. Hamas has to disarm. Hamas has to behave itself. Tremendous amount of trust in a terrorist organization that's main goal is to kill Jews, to wipe out the Israeli state. Mark Levin brought this out recently on Fox News, clip 1.
They're a terror organization. Their charter calls for the destruction of Israel. Now they're mad at people that want peace in their own region, and they're assassinating them.
You got the smartest people working on this. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to have to destroy Hamas, because Hamas is not a partner. They're not a country. They're not a team player. They don't believe in diplomacy. Here's the 1988 Hamas original charter: the complete destruction of Israel, obliteration of Israel through jihad, holy war, establishment of an Islamic State to replace the state of Israel and to impose Sharia law, rejection of negotiations, that is, dismisses any negotiated settlement or peace initiatives with Israel. I would suggest rhetoric and conspiracies, language directed at the Jewish people, not just the state of Israel. That is Hamas. Hamas is slaughtering Palestinian Muslims, other Palestinians, other Muslims, and the world is silent. The UN is silent. The Security Council is silent. The River to the Sea crowd, our universities are silent. The Hamas supporting front groups in our country, CARE and the rest, silent. So apparently it's okay to slaughter Palestinians if it's Palestinians slaughtering Palestinians. I don't believe that, but that's exactly what Hamas is doing.
He's right, and we've, of course, been on this over the last several days. They're executing their fellow Palestinians, and the UN doesn't care. The crowds of Hamas supporters on the university campuses, they don't care. Nothing said from them. And presumably, the ambassadors for peace don't really care. The 20-point plan or agreement, it is straightforward. It's clear. But couldn't there be a 21st point? Like, go and revise your charter where you vow to kill Jews. Let's change your constitution. How about that? Let's get to the root cause. This is a partner. Well, give them more time. Give them more time. Don't give Israel time to wipe them out. You've got to put a time limit on. Kill, maim, rape, torture, take them hostage. It says, for those ends, it diverted billions of dollars from the people of Gaza to build a vast subterranean labyrinth of military headquarters and arsenals. It expropriated hospitals, mosques, and schools for use as tunnel entries and exits, using expendable civilian shields to protect its rich terrorist hierarchy. They're all filthy rich. And they're abusing their own people. They're killing their fellow Palestinians. And the world's gone silent. As long as the Jews aren't involved, it's not a big deal. Just let them kill each other. And give them time. Peace is about to break out, after all. Just give them time. I've had the whole world telling me, go in there and finish them off, but I'm not going to do it. Not yet. I told Israel, not yet. Give them time to comply. It says here, this is VDH, Hamas will never give up power, despite the fact that its ruling elite is all but wiped out. Thousands of its foot soldiers are dead, and it is now loathed by most nations of the Middle East even. This is what we're dealing with. The subtext of every negotiation over the future of Gaza is that almost every Arab regime privately wants the U.S. or Israel to eliminate Hamas. And President Trump said as much yesterday. Yeah, all of our great peace partners in the Middle East, they want us to finish them off. But we can't do that. Not yet. We've got to give them time. It says here, the remnants of Hamas are already in public view in SS fashion, publicly executing any alleged critics or rivals, and it hopes to be reinvigorated by the recent release of 1,700 convicted terrorists. How do you make peace, as I said last week, by letting murderers out of prison? How do you sit down and have a constructive conversation with Erdogan, who says, well, I'll go, but not if Bibi's going to be there? Well, he's the one that they're trying to make peace with, right? That's what we're told. This is not going to end well. It's obvious, and the Bible tells us that. It says here, given that peace is impossible with Hamas in the negotiations, who or what is going to eradicate Hamas as it seeks to return to its accustomed killing and terrorism? I mean, he's pointing out what Bibi noted at the start, that we're going to wipe them out. We're going to disarm. They won't disarm themselves, so we have to do it. Or America has to do it. VDH says here, the chief obstacle to phase 2 of the ceasefire and hostage exchange is the elimination of Hamas. Otherwise, we're at a rare moment of opportunity in the Middle East where the once unimaginable has become a reality. What a wasted opportunity to wipe out an organization that from the start, 1987, 1988, said, you know what? Muslim Brotherhood's not vicious enough. So we're starting a new organization, and it's called Hamas. And our objective, our goal, is to murder Jews, to eliminate the Israeli state. So you go back to that UN example. Mr. Armstrong's there. He hears some of these optimistic speeches. Sobering, too. This is our last chance. MacArthur said that. This is our last chance to make peace. There were a lot of people back then that put a tremendous amount of faith in the United Nations. And today that organization is a joke. So much hatred and contempt for Israel and America, by the way. And yet we host them. We let them have their headquarters on U.S. soil, and we go there and speak. Our presidents speak there every year. Sometimes there's a real tongue lashing. We sit down and we're arrogant enough to think that, well, this time we can finally talk sense into the madmen. We can finally make peace. You just look at our peace partners, and they might say something in a meeting that sounds pretty good, but then when they go off and they talk to their people or they're interviewed on TV, are we listening to that too? Listen to Mark Levin again. This is clip 2.
And the Emir of Qatar, dare I mention, He put out a speech today, one of the biggest speeches of the year. Here's what he said. What has taken place in the Gaza Strip over the past 2 years amounts to genocide, a term that encapsulates all atrocities. It is regrettable that international legitimacy remains incapable of enforcing its respect when it comes to the tragedy of our brotherly Palestinian people. We hereby reaffirm our condemnation of all Israeli violations and practices in Palestine, particularly the transformation of the Gaza Strip into an area unfit for human life, the continued breaches of the ceasefire. So that's where our top mediator's head is. They poured $1.8 billion into Hamas. They haven't renounced Hamas. They didn't denounce Hamas theirs. Hamas is slaughtering fellow Palestinians. They didn't say a word about it. And then we're relying on Turkey. Here's Erdogan. You know, the Prime Minister of Israel was invited by the President of Egypt to join all the other countries. And the Prime Minister of Israel said yes, and then he had to say no. Why? Because Erdogan, who hates Israel, who's an Islamist, who threatens them with military extinction and economic distinction, who's a genocidal maniac who's taken over his country, he opposed Netanyahu's attendance, and it was confirmed by his chief of staff. They called Sisi, the president of Egypt, and said, if Netanyahu's there, I'm not coming.
Here again, it just makes you think back to 1945 and what Mr. Armstrong witnessed. Those kinds of disputes, that kind of animosity, that kind of hatred calls up Sisi. If Bibi's coming, I'm not coming. No way. This is from Herbert Armstrong's autobiography. He's talking about the establishment of the UN. The speeches certainly painted the grim picture. These men knew this was the world's last hope. It says, but what happened? At every turn, Mr. Molotov and the Russians balked, opposed, blocked, fought. The Russians had their agenda. America had its agenda. Everyone else has their agenda. Every man doing what seems right in his own eyes. A few days after the conference opened, a press conference had been scheduled for the Secretary of State, Statinius. It was held in a special conference room in another building. Statinius was some 30 to 45 minutes late in arriving. When he came in, his face was white with fury. He literally blazed with indignation. He had been delayed by the Russian Molotov in a meeting of leaders of few major powers, which should have ended sometime before the news conference was scheduled to begin. He explained to the newsmen how Molotov had blocked every move, fought, and opposed every plan or suggestion. And then Mr. Armstrong says, I think up until that moment, the leaders of the United States government had naively believed that the Soviet Union was really our ally. I mean, this has been a weakness for Manasseh going back generations, naively believing, well, they love us. Well, they're an ally. They're a partner in peace. I think they have a constructive role to play in peace, making peace. Does Erdogan want peace in the Middle East? Does he want the Palestinians to coexist with Jews? Gadi Tab, we had him on the show over the summer, and hopefully he'll be back on sometime in February, but he was on with Mike Duran from Tablet, and they were talking about the ceasefire deal and talking about Turkey, the one that the U.S. believes has a constructive role in solving this conflict between Hamas and Israel. Listen to this exchange, clip 9.
The Middle East always disappoints. It always disappoints. I don't want to be negative. You have to look at this in relative terms. Nobody, not Erdogan, not Mohammed bin Salman, not the Qataris, not the Egyptians, nobody wants the future of the Middle East to be dictated by Donald Trump and Netanyahu, together with Netanyahu. They all want to be. Erdogan wants to be the primary interlocutor with Trump. Mohammed bin Salman wants to be the primary interlocutor with Trump. They all want to diminish Israel somewhat. All of them do. So they're not all joining together. And look at
Erdogan. Let's be clear. Erdogan is actually praying publicly for the destruction of Israel.
There's a kind of quiet accommodation going on behind the scenes. At the same time, there's a presentation of Israel, a public presentation of Israel, often by Erdogan himself, as the threat to all Muslims, and Turkey as the answer to the threat. He did an interview when he left Sharm el-Sheikh, going back to Ankara. He did an interview in which he said that basically Turkey was the face of humanity against the inhumanity of the Israelis in Gaza. He said round about the same time, he said that what Netanyahu had done in Gaza is worse than anything Hitler ever did, and so on. So you have this. Now, why is he doing this? He's playing for leadership of the Islamic world. And he sees the anti-Israel rhetoric, not just for his domestic constituency at home, but also abroad, as an important ladder that he's climbing to be the leader of the Islamic world. So in terms of negotiation with the Americans and in terms of negotiation with the Israelis over, with Trump, negotiations with Trump over the whole Middle East, and negotiations with the Israelis over Syria and elsewhere, he sees it. He sees a good reason to be pragmatic with the Israelis, but rhetorically, he's taking a very different position.
Of course, speak out of both sides of your mouth. If you're in the negotiations, be pragmatic, sound sensible. Just make it sound like you want to make peace. Then, when you give the big speech. Then when you're interviewed, you've got to play to your people. And your people hate Jews. This is from the Turkish Minute from a month ago, a little over a month. Erdogan slams Netanyahu's "our city" claim on Jerusalem. Turkish President, this is 5-6 weeks ago, Turkish President Erdogan on Wednesday condemned Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu's declaration that Jerusalem belongs solely to Israel, vowing that Turkey will never abandon the Palestinians' claim to East Jerusalem. I mean, we will never agree that Jerusalem belongs to Israel. He has a constructive role in the peace negotiations, Erdogan. Turkey. Now, he won't go if Bibi goes, but he'll go. I mean, you just heard in that exchange, Qatar wants to be in tight with the Trump administration. Turkey wants to lead the way. Egypt wants to lead the way. And they all hate Israel. And we're sitting there going, you know what? I think these deep relationships are really helping. And then it's hard for U.S. officials to conceal their contempt for Israel. As I've said, it's Bibi that has to apologize. He has to apologize for the counteroffensive following October 7. He has to apologize for trying to take out Hamas, a terrorist organization that wants to kill Jews. Who else has apologized for anything? I talked about Hamas the other day. Has Erdogan apologized for what he said about Jerusalem just 5 weeks ago? Before he went into the peace meeting, did he apologize? Did he apologize for his hatred for Bibi Netanyahu? Did he say, you know what? I'm sorry that I said, I'm not coming if Bibi comes. I apologize to him and he's going to be here. Anything like that ever happen? This is leading to a spectacular fail. It's going to blow up in our faces. And history is there to inform us. Bible prophecy does. Bibi gave a speech in response to the things Erdogan was saying. This was, again, 5-6 weeks ago when, it's at the city of David, and we've We've had excavations there that we've participated in the heart of Jerusalem. Play clip 10.
2,000 years later, we recovered our city. We recovered our independence. We built our sovereign state anew. We built an army. And we built a country like no other. But this country is based on those 2,000 years of yearning. Next year in Jerusalem, next year in Jerusalem. It didn't matter if you were in the ghetto in Toledo or the ghetto in Warsaw. That's what Jews prayed for. Next year in Jerusalem. Well, we're here. This is our city, Mr. Erdogan. It's not your city. It's our city. It will always be our city. It will not be divided again.
This is our city, Mr. Erdogan. He's most likely responding to a 2020 claim from Turkey's parliament saying that Jerusalem is our city. So how do you, with these kinds of positions that they're both taking, never, in the case, Erdogan says, never, never will I abandon that claim. And you think Bibi's prepared to give up half of Jerusalem even? It's going to happen because of armed conflict. Zechariah 14, 1 and 2. So we know what's coming. My point, though, is that the peacemakers, well, we're just making it worse. We're setting things up for, as I say, just a massive explosion of violence. The latest trumpet, as I mentioned. Turkey is going to betray America. How timely is that? I mean, we produced that before the feast, probably a full month ago. Turkey is going to betray America. Is Turkey a good ally for America? My father writes. It says here, Psalm 83 is another prophecy that refers to Edom or Turkey. This shows that it is in an alliance with Assyria. Assyria refers to modern-day Germany. Turkey is going to ally with Germany. Psalm 83 reveals a shocking alliance built on hatred for Israel. Here's another alliance. Here's another effort to unify these Psalm 83 nations. And what do they unify around? Well, their hatred for Israel. And you see it openly. The contempt, the hatred, the hate speech. And yet the ambassadors for peace, they come away from the discussions and say, I didn't expect that it would go this well. I just did not expect it to be this successful. Edom or Esau has a history of betraying the nations of Jacob or Israel. The historian Josephus, my father says, recorded that 20,000 Edomites were received as defenders of Jerusalem in AD 70. Once inside, they betrayed the Jews by robbing and killing them, their own brothers. I mean, this is history. This is in Josephus. This is getting to the heart of why God is going to punish Turkey so severely. And it talks about that in Obadiah verses 5 and 6. God does hold us accountable for our sins. He says, vengeance is mine. Read, I don't want to just be super repetitive, but again, read Isaiah 59. Read that passage in Obadiah. We've got a little booklet on that subject. Read Romans 3. The peacemakers in the end, they're going to be sobbing. They're going to be weeping bitterly. Right now, they're talking about how great everything is going. It's a huge success. This week I've been playing that exchange between the two ambassadors for peace and Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes from Sunday evening. Here's clip 15.
So one of the issues that was left for phase two was Hamas disarming. And it's in the 20-point plan that they do that. Where are you in the negotiations for disarmament?
So in order for that to occur, we need to create the International Stabilization Force. And then the International Stabilization Force needs to, it needs to create a local Palestinian government.
How long is that going to take?
As quickly as we can make it happen.
But because this one issue was left unresolved, Hamas now is using weapons to execute people that they that is governing Gaza. They're moving into the vacuum.
Hamas right now is doing exactly what you would expect a terrorist organization to do, which is to try to reconstitute and take back their positions.
Right.
The success or failure of this will be if Israel and this international mechanism is able to create a viable alternative. If they are successful, Hamas will fail, and Gaza will not be a threat to Israel in the future.
Just what strikes me, besides, you know, the silly dove mentality, but just the confidence that these individuals have in what they're doing. Just give them more time.
For whatever reason, God put Steve and myself in the position to try and do something about it. Really just gave us the constant motivation to not stop until we achieved an objective.
At some point, though, America will stop and say, you know what, we tried, we're just going to move on. And again, all of this misguided hope, this misguided effort to make peace, it can sound pretty good when you listen to the ambassadors, when you listen to them talk. But when it blows up, I mean, it's going to lay the groundwork for all of these prophecies to be fulfilled. I mean, the Psalm 83 alliance, that's what my father talks about in that Turkey betraying America article. And then they're going to come in and say, you know what? We're coming into Jerusalem. We're going to maintain peace. It's a peaceful effort. And then the betrayal happens. And America, by that point, long gone. I'd encourage you to go and read that article from the latest Trumpet magazine. Then you look at our nation, the division, the strife, the hatred that's on full display. There's an article at the Federalist. Make assassinations great again. Leftist demonstrators call for murder of Trump. That's happening here at home. And then there's plenty of people abroad calling for the murder of Jews and Bibi. That'll solve the problem, they think. One woman held up a sloppy cardboard sign scrawled with a marker, "Which one heals faster, Trump's ear or Erica's heart?" referring to Charlie Kirk's widow. Isn't that sweet? There was also this menacing woman acting out the moment a bullet hit Charlie Kirk's neck. She was acting it out, being shot in the neck. This is part of the No Kings protest. It's a peaceful protest, right? One protester carrying an invitation to murder, "Would you like to kill Nazis with me?" was asked who the Nazis are. The leftist said, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. He's a Nazi. Kill him. Would you like to kill them with me? You want to join in on the fun? Listen to Steve Schmidt. I haven't heard him in a while, but he's still evidently on with MSNBC from time to time, talking about what needs to be done in order to stop Donald Trump. Clip 22.
The blue states can form legal interstate compacts, and they should come to a position, if you're a Democratic governor, that this moment of maximum abuse of power demands 100% of the time, in 100% of the instances, the maximum use of your legal power. If you hear, and there are way too many Democratic leaders in Washington who say, this will all just go back to normal when Trump is gone, that person is a fool and deluded. And that person absolutely should not be in a position of responsibility in the opposition party. This is a moment of deep, deep, deep danger for the American Republic. The amount of armaments being bought by ICE, what Trump is declaring is, I'm king, I'm law. Why not 500 million as he demolishes the White House in an act of corruption paid for by billionaire oligarchs and companies? Facebook demolished the White House. Google demolished the White House. Sam Altman demolished the White House. And the politics of this moment, as the American people face economic misery ahead, will demand not going back to something that's gone, but imagining something that's new that prevents any of this from ever happening again in the United States of America. We owe that to our children to heal our sick society from the sick and twisted presidency of the fascist Donald Trump.
Anything is justified if you're stopping the fascist, the Nazis. And then you have the ones out on the streets openly calling for assassinations. This Federalist piece, this woman said she is living in a nightmare under Trump. She wished him dead and said her fondest birthday wish was to see Trump's obituary in the newspaper in the morning. So how do you make peace when there's this deep of a division, when there's this kind of strife? I mentioned the guy who threatened Hakeem Jeffries. And of course, the regime media, they love that story because he was one of the January 6th insurrectionists. And Trump gave him a pardon. And now he's out. He's committing all these other violent acts. Blame it on Trump. This is what Hakeem Jeffries said in response to this threat, clip 17.
Here in America, we're living in a moment of extreme political violence. And that impacts every single person in public service and the people that we are all working hard to represent. But we will not be intimidated. We will continue to show up and stand up and speak up for the American people, to improve their quality of life, to address the extremism that is being unleashed on everyday Americans by this administration all across the country. We will not bend. We will not break. We will never bow down. And when it comes to these extremists out there, you better watch how you talk when you talk about me.
There were some people online that said that last comment there, you better watch how you talk when you talk about me. Saying it's a threat, basically. It's taken out of some rapper's song, 50 Cent. The song's called Many Men. You better watch how you talk when you talk about me. This is the minority leader in the House. House of Representatives. This rapper these are some of the lyrics without so much of the profanity. He sings, I'm the diamond in the dirt that ain't been found. I'm the underground king, and I ain't been crowned. I'm the underground ruler. I'm the king. And he's armed with weapons. Go ahead, lose your head. Turn your back on me. Get clapped and lose your legs. I walk around, gun on my waist, chip on my shoulder, till I bust a clip in your face. You better watch it when you talk about me. How do you tone this down, this kind of rhetoric? How do you make peace in this kind of environment? We're not going to bow down. We're not going to lay down our weapons. It's the way Hamas thinks. It's the way a lot of people think, which is why God says in Romans 3 and verse 17, the way of peace have they not known. When the Bible talks about man's wicked, sinful, evil, violent nature being changed, he's talking about our hearts to begin with. What we think, what we say, and then, of course, what we do. All of it has to be transformed. But how do you get it to be a permanent ceasefire when you've got all of this angry, violent rhetoric? When you've got these evil hearts everywhere? I'm not going to show up, not if Bibi's there. I hate him. Jerusalem isn't yours, it's ours. You better watch what you say when you're talking about me. Watch how you talk when you talk about me. I guess Jeffries is a 50 Cent fan. Well, evidently he's the fan. There's lots and lots of fans, millions, that just listen to these songs. Yeah, I'm carrying around my gun. I'll clap you in the legs or wherever. I mean, it's the kind of thing the Bible talks about, certain sins just not even going there because it's so seedy, it's so ridiculous and deranged. That's where we are. That's where we are. Romans 3 verse 18. There's no fear of God before their eyes. There's just no fear. God says in Proverbs, that's where true education and godly wisdom begins. If we just fear God. What does God expect? What does God want from us? You look at some of these things that we're plagued by, and I mean, if you're in God's family, if you're in God's church, you can think a lot about just how crucially important we are in the solution to these problems. We are the peacemakers of tomorrow. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the children. They're the children of God. They shall be called the children of God. That's Matthew 5 and verse 9. It's a good verse to end the show with, because that's all we have time for on today's show, the fastest moving hour in broadcasting. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily with the new black background. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow.